All rise. The Kosovo Specialist Chambers is now in session.
Be seated. Madam Court Officer, please call the case.
Good morning, Your Honors. This is case KC-BC 2020-06, the Specialist Prosecutor versus Hashim Thaçi, Kadri Veseli, Recep Salimi, and Jakub Krstić.
The record will reflect that all the accused are in court today. We will continue hearing the evidence of Thaçi defense witness 1DW-009. Before we start with the evidence of the witness, there are some preliminary matters that the panel would like to address. To begin with, the panel will issue 2 oral orders. First oral order, on 25 January 2025, the panel ordered the Language Service Unit to verify the translations of P00943_ET and P00944_ET. Following this verification process, the SBO on 29 August 2025 requested that these items be replaced with the revised translations which were disclosed in Disclosure 1104, namely REG 01038 to REG 01126_ET_REV and REG 1006 to REG 10015_ET_REV. Can I confirm there are no objections? No objections are heard. Having heard the parties and the participants, the panel orders that P00943_ET and P00944_ET be replaced with the revised translations in Disclosure 1104. This concludes the panel's first oral order. Second oral order, the panel notes that the Thaçi defense made a request in relation to Thaçi defense witness 1DW-005 in filing F03513, and 2, the SBO made a request in relation to the same witness in filing F03515. The panel notes that since these requests were filed, the Thaçi defense has informed the panel that it no longer intends to rely on this witness. The panel therefore declares both filings moot. This concludes the panel's second oral order. Now, in relation to F03572, prosecution response to the Thaçi defense second request for admission of documents through the bar table, Mr. Misitich, you have indicated that you want to make submissions in reply. Are you ready to make them now?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
I just wish to actually address only the one item, which is item 26 on our bar table motion F03555, Annex 1. The prosecution says that this is a summary of testimony that was given in court, and actually the document indicates that this person spoke to the newspaper. It literally says speaks for Novosti. And then beginning at around the second paragraph and continuing to the very end of the document, it says he's, quote, testified for Novosti about some of his associates, etc. So the material contained in that document is actually material that was given to the newspaper directly, and it's not a summary of evidence in court. That would be our position on that, and that it is admissible. And while I'm on my feet, if I could have 30 seconds to address a point that Judge Matreau made yesterday about the distinction between internal and international armed conflict, just to put our position on the record.
Could be relevant, yes.
If not, that's fine. I can
No,
sit
go
down.
ahead. Go ahead. 30
I-
seconds maximum.
30 seconds. We just wanted to say that from our position is that there actually is no distinction to be made between, in the facts of this case, the end of the international armed conflict and the end of the non-international armed conflict, precisely because KFOR was responsible for preventing any conflict between Serbia and Kosovo, and therefore any attempt by Serbia to continue an armed conflict with the KLA necessarily would have required them to get into conflict with KFOR and continue with the international armed conflict. Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Mišetić.
Now we will continue hearing the evidence of the Thaçi defense witness 1DW009. Madam Court Officer, please bring in the witness. Good morning.
Good morning to you, Your Honor.
Today we are going to continue your testimony. I remind you to please try to answer the questions clearly with short sentences. If you don't understand a question, feel free to ask counsel to explain, and they will, or you can ask them to repeat if you don't hear it clearly. Also, please try to remember to indicate the basis of your knowledge of the facts and circumstances upon which you will be questioned. I remind you that you are still under an obligation to tell the truth as stated by you in your solemn declaration. Please also remember to speak into the microphone and wait 5 seconds before answering a question, and speak at a slow pace for the interpreters to catch up. And if you feel the need to take a break at any time, please let us know. We will take a break at 10 o'clock for a short break of 10 minutes. And at 11, we'll take a half-hour break, just so you know what's going to happen in the near future. Please give Ms. Tavakoli your attention. She will continue her direct examination. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honour. Good morning, Mr. Durkee. Yesterday, when we finished up your testimony, we were talking about the post-war violence in Kosovo. I want to continue with that theme, please, today. Now, at paragraph 17 of your statement, you described the violence in the summer of 1999, and these are your words, widespread social reaction that neither KFOR nor the KLA leadership could control. What did you mean by widespread social reaction?
It was my perception, and also that of KFOR and UNMIC, that the returning refugees who had been chased out of Kosovo by Milosevic's forces in that winter, that harsh winter of 1998-1999, were returning to the villages and towns that they had lived in, and found that many of their homes had been destroyed, that property was missing, that friends and neighbors were missing. And so the level of destruction and disruption of ordinary life for Kosovo Albanians was very large, heavy, serious. And so many of them reacted with anger, rage, resentment, a desire for revenge.
You go on to say, in that paragraph, that it was spontaneously generated at the local level, motivated by revenge, personal grudges, score settling, opportunistic property theft, and long-standing feuds between families or criminal gangs. Now, I want to unpack that sentence step by step. When you say motivated by revenge, revenge for what?
If one looks back at what happened in the spring of 1999, and the activities of not only Serb organized forces under the control of the government, but also the paramilitaries and informants that they had developed among the Serb population of Kosovo. And in many places, those local Serb residents were in fact providing the information about where the Serb forces should turn their attention. This was largely developed and directed by the Ministry of Internal Affairs. And so as the Kosovar Albanians were witnessing this and being treated this way by people who lived in the similar circumstances in those villages and towns, you can understand why they would have this desire for revenge, because they felt that they had been betrayed and victimized by people that they may have grown up with. It was civil wars are always brutal, and this was a brutal civil war at that level.
And when you say personal grudges, score settling, and long-standing feuds between families, how long-standing were those feuds? Did they relate to matters before the conflict or not?
We have to refer back to the tradition of the Albanian kanun, the idea of personal honor and the importance of defending personal honor. This meant that when a member of a family was aggrieved by the actions of someone else in that town or village, it was not just the individual who would be looking for revenge, but the entire family. Score settling in the sense of getting back at whoever had offended that member of the family.
And is that, was some of the violence, was that why some of the violence was happening in your assessment?
Yes, I believe so. And that was also the assessment of KFOR and UNMIC as I talked to those staffs.
And just to go back to my original question, was it score settling about events? Could it have been score settling about events that happened before the conflict? I.e., it wasn't revenge for things that happened in the conflict, but for things that predated the conflict that people were taking revenge for?
In the history of the Kanun, some of these feuds could go back generations. So yes, they could have preceded the conflict.
And just briefly, what is your understanding of the Kanun?
It is the high emphasis placed on the security, protection, and advancement of the family against the vicissitudes of an unfriendly environment and other people. And you must put the family honor ahead of all other considerations.
And as a result, would you agree that in assessing any conflict in any particular country, the culture of that country must be taken into account in assessing it?
Of course.
Now, you also make reference here to criminal gangs carrying out some of the violence. Where were those criminal gangs from?
I would judge that, and this also was based on briefings and information provided at the KFOR staff and UNMIC, others I spoke with. Some of these were long-standing gang, not quite warfare, but the conflicts between gangs trying to penetrate and carry out their activities in one area, getting into conflict with gangs operating in a similar or local area nearby. And that meant that as the Albanian gang coming over the border were trying to continue their activities in Kosovo, that they fell into conflict and were also in conflict with Kosovar Albanians.
Now, you've explained that was this view also shared by SACEUR, your description of the violence, etc., and NATO member states that fed into SACEUR's briefings as you described yesterday?
This would have been part of the flow of information that was reaching General Clark. Yes.
So it would have also included the
Yes.
assessments of individual NATO member states, such as the UK, the US, Germany, Ireland, and so on.
It was a generalized view at that point, yes.
Now, in paragraph 18 of your statement, you say that you formed the view that the KLA leadership was unable to control the violence because the emotions of the displaced population were so strong, but also as there was no solid chain of command within the KLA. Your assessment that there was no solid chain of command within the KLA, was that your personal assessment, or was it also shared by SACEUR and NATO member states?
The conclusion that I drew was based on the flow of information available to SACEUR and the member nations. I was applying in that assessment the knowledge that I have of how military staffs and command structures function. And it was my opinion then and now that there was no such solid command structure such that someone at senior level in Pristina could give orders that would result in direct action on the ground in one of the operational zones. The operational zone commanders had considerable autonomy and a willingness to act on their own when they thought best. So there was a rough chain of command, more in the sense of coordination, but not of direct command authority as we understand it in the Western militaries.
Now, could Hashim Thaçi have stopped this violence?
He had no authority or power that would allow him to do that.
And why do you say that?
Because in those days after the Serb withdrawal, the withdrawal of Serb forces, the KLA was in the midst of carrying out the undertaking that they had negotiated with KFOR, with General Jackson. And so while there were KLL fighters still in the field, the command structure was basically trying to figure out how to do this demobilization and demilitarization that they had committed to. So that when they were looking, Mr. Thaçi, Commander Cheku and others were looking at what the KLA could do, their first priority was to carry out the undertaking. They may have also tried to stop what they saw as aimless and damaging violence, damaging to their cause of independence that was going on. But because so much of it was locally organized and conducted, there was not a command structure that he could have used to stop it.
Why was the violence going on damaging to their cause of independence?
As we learned from that very first meeting with Mr. Thaçi and others, their goal, the goal had been publicly proclaimed for years before, was the independence and creation of a sovereign, separate Kosovo. And so doing things which let me take one step back. It was only a few years before when Western governments regarded the KLA as a terrorist group. And it took some period of time of their showing that they could be more organized, disciplined, and they were looking for the creation of a Kosovo in which all people could live in peace and security. Showing that somehow they were conducting or contributing to the lawlessness and the violence was directly detrimental to their efforts to portray that to Western governments so they could continue to get the support of NATO and of the EU. So it would have been contrary to their long-term interests.
And when you said from that meeting they were looking for the creation of a Kosovo in which all people could live in peace and security, did that include Hashim Thaçi?
Yes,
And it's right, isn't it, that not only could Hashim Thaçi have not stopped the violence in '99, he spoke out publicly against it, as you've recorded in paragraph 19 of your statement, urging tolerance and non-violence, didn't he?
that's correct.
Thank you very much, Mr. Durkee. I have no further questions.
Mr. Dixon,
Thank you, Your Honours. No questions from us.
Mr. Tully,
Thank you, Your Honor. No questions.
Very brief, Your Honor.
go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Durkee.
Good
My name is
morning.
Mentor Bashiri, and I represent Mr. Jakub Krasniqi. I have only a few questions for you today. Mr. Durkee, referring to your statement, more specifically paragraphs 15 and 16, you will agree with me that the post-war situation in Kosovo in the months June, July '99 was very chaotic, wasn't it?
Yes,
Now, as you mentioned today, and that is page 5 of the transcript, thousands of refugees floated back into Kosovo as a matter of weeks, correct?
yes.
Can we please pull up DHT 08520? If we can scroll down, please, a little bit. Yes. Witness, this is an UNHCR report dated 21 June 1999, and I invite you to look at the sections relating to Albania and Macedonia, please.
Okay,
Witness, you can see that these figures are reported by UNHCR in relation to the returning refugees. Are these figures consistent with your recollection of returned civilians in Kosovo right after the war?
yes, this was also the observation of KFOR.
And the need to provide accommodation, food, and healthcare for these thousands of returning refugees, that was another factor contributing to the chaos at the time, wasn't it?
Yes,
Now, at paragraph 16 of your statement, you have said that the absence of basic services and lack of a functioning law enforcement system contributed to an atmosphere of lawlessness, which only emboldened the criminal element. Do you recall saying that, Mr. Durkee?
yes.
If I can show you a newspaper article, can we please pull up DJK 01705, please? Mr. Durkee, this is a newspaper article dated 14 August 1999, and in the second paragraph it says, "We should not be pointing fingers at the KLA. At the highest levels, they are cooperating with us. But we should know that foreign elements are arriving here from all sides of the border," said the Supreme Commander of NATO forces in Europe, American General Wesley Clark, at a brief press conference in Pristina. Now, looking at what is stated here, Mr. Durkee, you would agree that elements were arriving from all sides of the border into Kosovo in the summer of '99, correct?
Yes,
And it is possible, isn't it, that this situation could also have contributed to an atmosphere of lawlessness at the time?
yes.
Thank you. Your Honors, I seek to tender the newspaper article DJK 01705. Although this item forms part of the Krasniqi Defense BTM, I submit that the witness has provided sufficient context for its admission, and it may therefore be entered into evidence through this witness.
No objections, Your Honor.
No objections? No objections. DJK 01075 is admitted.
Thank you very much for answering my questions, Mr. Durkee. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
SPO, questions?
Thank you, Your Honor. This document with the ARN DJK 01705, Albanian and English translation, will receive exhibit number 4D00143, and classification is public. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, SPO.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, good morning.
Good morning.
I will introduce myself. My name is Silvia D'Ascoli. I'm one of the prosecutors with the SPO, and I will be asking you questions on behalf of the prosecution today. My initial estimate was about 2 hours and a half, although I hope to take less time than that. Sir, in direct examination yesterday and at paragraph 5 of your statement, you testified about your professional experience working on the Balkans. Before your work as a senior advisor to General Wesley Clark, you worked with General George Jolwan, and he was this occurred until 1997, correct?
Yes,
Now, during the time you worked with General Jolwan, your dealings also included dealing with Serbian officials, is that correct?
yes,
And your dealings with Serbian officials continued when you started working for General Clark.
yes,
For example, as also described by General Clark in his book, Waging a Modern War, you accompanied him to Belgrade during his meetings with Slobodan Milosevic, correct?
yes,
Now, in direct examination, when describing your responsibilities as senior advisor to General Clark, you explained that you were looking at how the operating environment was developing in terms of the continued effort of Slobodan Milosevic and his forces to repress any Albanian resistance. This was at page 111 of yesterday's transcript. You remember that, right?
yes,
In direct examination, you also refer to Mr. John Duncan as being part of your staff, as being one of the advisors on your team. Did you follow his testimony in this trial in September 2025?
Whose testimony?
Mr. John Duncan's testimony.
I was aware that he testified, yes.
And did you follow his testimony or not?
I did not have any direct access at that time, but I saw a video of his testimony later.
Okay, I understand. Now, you might know or not, but in his testimony, Mr. Duncan said that you had very good knowledge of Serbian matters, and that's accurate, correct?
Yes,
Mr. Duncan also told this court that you and he essentially split Kosovo and Serbia matters, with Mr. Duncan covering the Kosovo side and you covering the Serbia side, in light of your expertise on Serbian matters. And that's an accurate description, a fair description of how you and Mr. John Duncan divided your responsibilities, correct?
yes,
Would it be fair to say, in your opinion, that Mr. Duncan was the most informed person on the SHAPE staff with regard to Kosovo, Kosovo Albanians, including the KLA?
yes,
And that was because, in your role as SHAPE, you knew that John Duncan was the one who had spent the most time with them while negotiating the undertaking, correct?
yes,
During your role as an advisor to General Clark, I'm referring to the first half of 1999, you were based at the SHAPE headquarters in Belgium, correct?
yes.
And you did not go to Kosovo in that same period.
Not before the end of the conflict, yes.
Yeah. Now, during the preparation session, you clarified that General Clark assigned you to be his representative in the military technical agreement negotiations, and that he sent you to Kosovo for that. And there was also your testimony yesterday, temporary transcript page 125. Now, General Clark's book, Waging Modern War, the reference is page DHT 11502, indicates that General Clark's deployed you to Macedonia to work with Jackson during the in-progress negotiations for the military technical agreement and therefore the negotiations with the Serbs. And this was in June 1999. The book also indicates that you were an unofficial line of communication for General Clark to liaise with Fogelson and Jackson. And also by the time Sir Mike Jackson, by the time that Sir Mike Jackson finally achieved the signature of the Serbs on the military technical agreement, Jackson had been deployed in Macedonia for 3 months. You remember that?
Yes.
Now, I believe during the preparation sessions, you indeed indicated that you were in Kumanovo for those negotiations, not in Kosovo. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So is it correct that you were deployed by General Clark to Macedonia, not to Kosovo, as it still appears to be said in your statement for those negotiations?
Deployed to Kumanovo, yes.
Okay. Now, in the context of the Kumanovo negotiations, as we understand and you said, you worked with General Jackson, correct?
Yes.
And in that context, too, you dealt with the Serbian delegation to the negotiations.
Yes.
And you attended meetings between the Serbs and General Jackson.
Yes. Not all, but not all, of course, but the more public ones, that is the larger ones.
Yes, indeed. You indicated that in your preparation session. Now, your deployment to Macedonia and assignment to the MTA negotiations once again implicated your expertise on Serbian matters, correct?
Yes.
Yes, and I believe also you noted that in your statement, paragraph 9. I will now move to paragraph 12 of your statement, and this is, to orient yourself, this is the paragraph where you discuss a meeting with the Kosovo Albanian delegation outside of Mons. You have clarified during direct examination that this meeting is the same as that 19 March 1999 meeting referred to in a BBC article that was presented to you, and that's marked with exhibit number 1D360. Now, when looking at the list of attendees in that article, you said you recognized as people that you saw only Mr. Thaçi and Mr. Jakub Krasniqi. I believe today you said that there was that very first meeting with them. So was that the first time you had a direct meeting or direct contacts with Mr. Hashim Thaçi?
Yes.
In paragraph 13 of your statement, 1D428, you describe your impressions of Mr. Thaçi from that first meeting between him, General Clark, yourself, and the Kosovo delegation. You have already explained during direct examination yesterday what your impressions were based on. So that's clear. I will not go back into that. But I want to ask you a few questions about what you knew or didn't know about Mr. Thaçi at that time. Now, prior to Rambouillet, had you heard of Mr. Thaçi?
Yes, he had been, I think, identified in public reporting as a leader of the so-called political directorate of the KLA.
And that's the extent to which you have heard of him.
Yes.
Now, and at that time, did you know who the founders of the KLA were?
I don't believe that at that time we had extensive knowledge of the formation and development of the KLA prior to sometime in, during the course of 98 and early 99.
And so did you know whether Mr. Thaçi was a founder of the KLA?
I do not know.
Did you know what role Mr. Thaçi had or took in organizing the KLA after the KLA's founding?
I do not.
And did you know whether Mr. Thaçi was one of the first members of the KLA General Staff?
I do not believe that at the time we met Mr. Thaçi at Mons, that he had been identified as somehow a leader or commander of the General Staff. He was identified as a leader of the, quote, political directorate of the KLA, which would be separate, of course, from the General Staff.
I understand. So that was not an information available to you at that time,
Yes.
correct? Yes, okay. Now, did you know about any involvement that Mr. Thaçi had or not in supplying weapons, for example?
I do not have specific knowledge of that, no.
Okay. And did you know whether it was present during military actions by the KLA? And I'm referring, for example, to Bardei Imade in Belacevac, June 1998, or Rauvac, July 1998. Did you have any knowledge about that?
I do not have specific knowledge of what he might have been doing in 1998.
Okay, I see. Now, I'll move on to paragraphs 13, 14, and 18, where you offered your views concerning the KLA and his lack of chain of command. You repeated that also this morning. Now, you said that this was in the temporary transcript of yesterday during direct examination. You said that at that time, referring to spring 1999, you did not have very good information. There was not a good assessment in terms of the KLA military capabilities because of the limited information you had received. You knew that they had fighters in the field, but how many, where they were stationed, and what their capabilities were, you did not know exactly. Now, again, I want to ask you a few questions about what you knew or did not know about the KLA at that time. For example, are you familiar with the contents of any KLA regulations?
Would you repeat that, please?
Yes, of course. Are you familiar with the contents of any KLA regulations?
No.
Did you know who the members of the KLA General Staff were? We have addressed that in relation to Mr. Thaçi, but my question now is a bit broader.
This is in the spring of 1999?
I'm talking about your knowledge at the time, yes.
I do not believe that we had specific information available about the composition and membership of the so-called General Staff.
Okay. Did you have access to any KLA orders, whether at the central level by the General Staff or at the zone level?
We were aware of public statements that had been made by people on behalf of the KLA describing what they regarded as directives and communiques, yes.
And that was the extent of the knowledge you had. That's what you mean.
At that time,
Public statement, sorry, I'm just reading, public statement made by people on behalf of the KLA describing what they regarded as directives or communique. Okay.
yes, because, if I might elaborate a bit, Western governments were only slowly developing their information networks in that part of former Yugoslavia. So much attention had been given to the conflict in Bosnia and the later to develop sources of information regarding what was happening within Serbia itself. So not much attention had been paid to the specific area of Kosovo. It was a developing process.
I understand. So I also take it that you did not have access to any specific KLA orders.
That's correct.
Okay. What about reports to the general staff? KLA reports to the general staff.
Excuse me, I need to clarify, reports from whom?
Internal KLA reports. Therefore, from the zone, you mentioned you were aware of the KLA operational zones. Zone commanders.
I do not recall anything that was identified as a report from the operational zone commanders to something called the general staff, no.
Okay. Were you familiar with inspections or visits that the general staff members paid to the KLA operational zones?
No.
Were you familiar with that?
No.
No. And were you aware of how the KLA operational zones were organized internally?
We had only very limited and general knowledge of what was happening at the level of the operational zones because each one had developed individually based on the interests and activities and capabilities of the people living in those areas. They formed initially as sort of armed village guards and then later developed into more organized fighting forces, but at that zonal level. I don't recall any information of fighters from one of the operational zones being transferred for an operation in a different operational zone. They were very locally based.
Yes, you're reinstating that the information you had at the time was limited.
Correct.
If I can summarize. Okay. Now, I want to move to your observations during summer 1999. In the preparation note, which is now in evidence as 1D427, paragraph 15, as well as in direct examination yesterday, you clarified that your statement that you had ample opportunities to observe the reality on the ground in Kosovo, which is a statement made at paragraph 15 of your statement, was based on approximately 4 visits that you made to Kosovo in the summer of 1999. And you also clarified yesterday a temporary transcript, page 131, that that was for a total of 6 or 7 days, all considered. You remember
Yes.
that? Okay. Now, I understand from the preparation note and the examination yesterday that in at least 2 of those 4 visits to Kosovo, you accompanied General Clark.
Yes.
And you believe that was on 1 and 13 August 1999, although for 13 August you weren't 100% sure. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, I want to focus on these 2 visits, and Your Honors, I would need to move into private session for reasons imposed by the documents providers.
Into private session, please, Madam Court Officer.
Your Honors, we are now in public session.
Thank you. We're adjourned for 10 minutes.
All rise. All rise.
Be seated. Please bring the witness back in. The SPO prosecutor will continue with her questions. Go ahead, Mr. Escali.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Sir, I'll continue. I want to go back now to your observations during those 4 visits in Kosovo, and in particular to the areas of your statement. This is both in paragraph 16 and 17, when you speak about the fact that violence and crimes you observe were the result of revenge, social reactions not organized from the top. One preliminary question is whether have you read the indictment in this case?
I'm sorry, which documents are you referring to?
My question is whether you have read the indictment in this case, in the case against Mr. Thaçi and others.
I have not read the indictments, no.
Therefore, am I correct that you do not know what crimes are charged in this case?
I do not.
Okay. I would like to focus not on retaliatory violence, not on revenge or opportunistic crimes, but on crimes committed against persons held in KLA detention. Now, you must know, in light of your former position, that certain crimes in 1998 and 1999 appear to be the result of organized efforts by the KLA, right?
I've read I'm aware of such reports, yes.
Okay. Were you aware, in particular, of allegations or crimes committed against the people held in detention facilities run by the KLA throughout 1998 and 1999?
I was aware of such reports.
In fact, KLA crimes were indeed reported in the news, and I want to discuss a couple of examples of that. In particular, do you recall reports about the KLA taking over the town of Rauvets in July 1998?
I do not.
Okay. So you would not remember reports about KLA detaining about 85 ethnic Serbs in that context?
No.
Can we bring up P380 and go to PDF page 6, which is marked with ERN K036 4869. K0364870. Sir, to orient yourself, this is a Human Rights Watch report dated 1st of October 1998. I will read from the section under the subheadings abductions in Oravats, so that you can follow on the screen. On July 19, the UCK began its first major attack on a larger city, Oravats. An estimated 85 ethnic Serbs were taken into custody by the UCK, although 35 of them were subsequently released. As of August 1998, at least 40 people were still unaccounted for. It continues, but I just want to focus on a few points. If we move to the next page. Second paragraph says the fate of an estimated 40 other people taken from the Oravats area remains unknown. And at the end of that same paragraph, there are also reports of 17 other people abducted by the UCK from the village of Retimilie near Oravats. Now, does that trigger any memory as to whether you knew about or recall reading about this or not?
I do not recall that specific report, no.
Okay, I understand. The New York Times also in an article...
Yes, yes.
Oh,
I was just going to, sorry. I just wanted to clarify the purpose of these questions, just in light of Rule 143 of the rules, which says that cross-examination shall be limited to the subject matter of direct examination and any matters affecting the credibility of the witness. Obviously, this witness has been called to testify about events in 1999. Nothing was raised in his examination in chief about any events in 1998. I understand also that the examining party, you can elicit evidence to further your case, but that doesn't obfuscate the word shall. So I'm just wondering what the scope is here.
There was no objection.
There is I want to understand what the purpose of it is, because it seems to me that that's out with the scope and therefore there is an objection.
The purpose is to question, one, credibility, and number two, the facts themselves. Because all this material has been discussed, whether it was 1988, 1998, or 1999, by this gentleman in connection with knowledge he has of the situation. This is very relevant testimony and will continue.
thank you, Your Honor. I will continue. I was just saying that these events were also reported by the New York Times in an article of 13 August 1998, and for the record, we have it as P4153. Sir, the U.S. State Department country reports on human rights practices for Serbia and Montenegro also contained reports on crimes in Kosovo. You must have been familiar with those reports.
In general, yes.
Okay. For example, do you recall or were you aware of reports about the KLA targeting collaborators and civilians?
I do not recall that I was aware at that time, no.
Okay. Can I please have P4502 on the screens? And, sir, this will be indeed a U.S. Department of State Serbia-Montenegro country report on human rights practices for 1998. However, we will see it was released in February 1999. We can see that
Yes.
on the first page. Yeah. Now, if we go to page 2, please. I want to direct your attention to the paragraph before the heading, Respect for Human Rights. Yeah. This says, elements of the KLA were also responsible for abuses. They committed killings, were responsible for disappearances, abducted and detained, Serbian police as well as Serb and Albanian civilians, those suspected of loyalty to the Serbian government, and in a few isolated cases tried suspects without due process. There are also credible reports of instances of torture by the KLA. Now, if we move to page 5 of the same report, I will read just a portion from the penultimate paragraph, if we can bring that up, please. Yeah, exactly. In the middle of the paragraph, the penultimate one, I read in October, the KLA, this is October 1998, the KLA detained 13 Albanian politicians, including members of the Kosovo Albanian Shadow Parliament in Shiraz for 2 days. The KLA forces are reported to have repeatedly tortured 6 of the 13 detainees, whom they consider to be too close to the Serbian government. Finally, page 8 of the same report, SPOE 00397695. I will read just the last paragraph on this page, if we can go up, please. Thank you. Separatist fighters arrest Serbian journalists and took some hostage, in addition to credible cases in which so-called collaborators were killed. Some ethnic Albanians employed by state-owned enterprise were threatened. Now, I've given
I'm sorry, I don't know where you are on this
I
document.
don't either.
Yes, it's the very last part,
You d- it
the
didn't-
last paragraph.
You began with words that weren't on the first sentence. Maybe you should read it again.
Yes, I started from the last.
Witness, do you understand where we are now on the page?
No, I don't.
Should be the
Yes.
top of the bottom paragraph.
Top of the bottom, separatist fighters?
Yes.
Yes.
I got it.
However, I read the last sentence, which also starts with separatist fighters. Harass the Serbian journalists,
You need to be a little more direct in
Yes.
in-
Yes,
in
Your Honor.
directing us to the right place.
Yes.
I see it.
Okay. We've read several parts from this report. Now, do you recall this type of information being reported at the time? Were you aware of that?
I was aware of increasing reports about the rising level of violence in that region. May I add, though, that from the point of view of shape, we were not yet looking forward to a military operation in that area. And therefore, compared with our attention to what was happening in Bosnia and other parts of the world, we had a limited attention span, and Kosovo at that point was not really on our radar as a place where we would have to conduct a mission.
I understand. Can we are done with this document, thank you. And can we now have on the screen SPOE 00397705 to 00397756? And again, to start the first page, please. Sir, this is another U.S. State Department country report for Serbia and Montenegro, published in 2000 and referring to the year 1999. Can we please move to page 24 of the PDF, which is marked with DRN SPOE 00397728. Witness, we see from the previous page that we are in a section summarizing reports on torture and other cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment. And I'm saying that to give you orientation as to the section of the document. Now, I will read from a paragraph towards the end of the page. Let me see if he appears. Yes, so it's the second last paragraph, where it starts with saying, according to Human Rights Watch, after the I think it must be, sorry, a little bit further down. Yes, it's the third last paragraph. According to Human Rights Watch, after the withdrawal of Serbian forces, are you following? Could you
I am.
Okay, thank you very much. After the withdrawal of Serbian forces, KLA members tortured ethnic Serbs, ethnic Albanians, suspected of collaborating with the Serb authorities, and Roma, including beating of elderly ethnic Serbs. K4 found a torture chamber in a KLA dormitory in late August, which contained weapons, ammunition, explosive, and booby traps.
Yes?
Any recollection about that?
No?
Okay. Can we now move to page 26 of the PDF, marked with SPOE 397730. And again, to orient you in the document, we are now in the section on arbitrary arrest and detention, which appears on the previous page. I'm reading from the second paragraph on top of section E. If we can scroll down on this page, please. Yes, exactly. You see now that paragraph, it's the second from the top of the page, where it says, there were reports of KLA abductions and detainings during the year of journalists, Serbs, and political opponents. On June 18, K4 troops released some 15 persons who were held by the KLA in the police station in Prizren. The victims reported that the KLA members beat them. In early August, the local LDK office in Giljan was also ransacked, and some of his representatives were detained and arrested. Same question, sir. Were you aware of such KLA crimes being reported at that time?
I don't remember this specific report. I do remember that K4 was reporting up through normal channels in their daily reports of incidents of KLA non-compliance and violence against others. Yes.
Okay. Your Honors, I would like to tender the pages used into evidence, specifically SPOE 00397705, which is the first page, then SPOE 00397728, and 7730, which are the pages that I used, and the document can be public.
Yes,
Objection.
yes, we object. This witness said expressly he has never seen this report. He has no recollection of it. He has no recollection of every single incident that was put to him by this prosecutor. There also seems to be confusion, in fact, in his answer in the last. If this report is from 98 or 99?
The report was published in 2000, and it refers to the year 1999.
So they're in, the incidents are in 1999? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So the points remain. He has no knowledge of the report. He's never seen it. He doesn't know the incidents in it. This is not appropriate to put this in through this witness.
Your Honour, we support that objection. If this is such important evidence that the prosecution now relies upon, they've had plenty of opportunity to introduce it during their case.
Your Honor, this document does not add anything to what is already in the prosecution case. These are no new allegations. We have corroborative evidence or exactly the same incidents, which in fact I'm going into. And it is not about whether the witness has knowledge about this specific report or not, but it is related to his testimony because he is indeed testifying about his knowledge of KLA crimes, specifically in 1999. So the SPO submit that it is indeed relevant.
SPOE 00397705, 397728, and 397730 are all admitted as compliant with Rule 138. They are relevant. It's all material that we're all aware of already, and she's merely asking him to comment on it.
Thank you, Your Honor. Those 3 pages will receive exhibit number P04511, and classification as indicated by the council can be public now. Thank you.
Thank you. I will continue. Sir, the incident in Prizren in the second half of June 1999 that we just read about was an incident where German KFOR troops rescued 15 prisoners found in a former Serbian police station that had been taken over by the KLA. And it was on the news on both the New York Times, we have that as P1188.1, and the CNN, P4185. I will just call up one of these articles just to see whether that refreshes your recollection or triggers any memories. Yes, can we please have P4185? This is a CNN media report dated 19 June. Can we please go to page 3 of the document, 013439. If we can scroll down. Yes, sorry, I will be reading from the section K4 frees captives of KLA. On the second paragraph, just under the photo, we read, on Friday, German K4 troops swooped into a former police station in Prizren that had been taken over by the ethnic Albanian KLA, rescuing 15 prisoners who had apparently been beaten by their captors. An elderly man was found dead, chained to a chair. I'm not going into the whole article because this mirrors the same incident that was reported in the US State Department country report. Now, again, seeing this article, recalling the details of what happened, does that assist you in recalling whether you heard of, for example, this specific incident which involved the crimes committed against people held in detention facilities run by the KLA?
I do not recall the specific reporting that came through NATO channels up from K4, but I am confident it would have been reported in those channels.
I will now move to, thank you, I'm done with the document. I will now move to paragraph 18 of your statement, sir, where you refer to K4 and General Jackson. So you acknowledge in that paragraph that if General Jackson believed that the KLA leadership was responsible for the violence and crimes in the summer of 1999, he would have confronted them about it. You recall that. You are, of course, familiar with the undertaking. We have it in evidence as P1444, signed by the KLA and General Jackson on 21 June 1999. Now, you were not present during its drafting and its negotiations in Kosovo, correct?
Of
the undertaking?
No.
Okay. Mr. Duncan was, right?
Yes.
Yes. And we know that pursuant to the undertaking, the authority for dealing with breaches of the undertaking itself was K4, correct?
Yes.
And in particular, their role was for General Jackson and his team.
Yes.
Okay. And you would accept that General Jackson was well placed in his role as K4 to identify breaches of the undertaking by the KLA and reporting all violations.
General Jackson was a very competent and energetic commander, and yes, he was well qualified.
Your Honor, I would need to move into private session to use documents for which restrictions have been imposed by the provider.
Into private session, please, Madam Court Officer.
Your Honors, we are now in public session.
I will continue, Your Honor. Can I call up Exhibit P755? Sir, the document that will appear now on the screen is an unmake record of a meeting between Mr. Bernard Kouchner and Com K4 General Jackson, with also Hashim Thaçi and Najim Cheku on 27 July 1999. By seeing this document, this cable, is it a document that you saw before? Does it
I've not
record-
seen this document
Okay.
before.
Now, if we move to page SITF 0017-2748, we see in the paragraph with the heading paramilitary forces that there is an exchange in this page between General Jackson and Hashim Thaçi, and specifically paragraph D records that General Jackson was worried about the PU elements in black uniforms. He says they had no authority to make arrests, he was kidnapping, he was losing confidence and might have to react. Thaçi's answer was evasive. Are you familiar with this exchange?
Not of the details of the meeting, no.
Were you aware that General Jackson raised this issue with Mr. Thaçi?
I know that General Jackson repeatedly raised what he saw as violations of the undertaking in order to get top-down guidance from people like Thaçi and Cheku to influence the behavior of the operational zone commanders, who had considerable autonomy and often acted on their own.
Okay. I'm done with the document. And yes, we are in open session. I'm moving to my last area. Sir, in direct examination, you were asked to comment about an official gazette of the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, now in evidence as 1D429. And you also spoke about the withdrawal of Serbian forces from Kosovo. Were you aware that after June 1999, when the Serbian forces had to leave Kosovo, there continued to be a certain presence of Serb paramilitaries?
Yes?
And again, now, Your Honors, in order to address some documents that have provided restrictions, I will need to move briefly into private session.
Into private session, please.
Your Honors, we are now in public session.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I'll continue on the same issue. And can I now call up 1D00257? There's also an Albanian translation for this. Sir, the document appearing now is a political declaration of the interim government of Kosovo by Hashim Thaçi. We can see his block signature on the second page, but I actually wanted, yes, exactly, you saw that, right? I actually wanted to draw your attention on page 1. SITF, yes, exactly. In particular, paragraph 3, which is in the middle of the page. Maybe we can zoom in a little bit so to make it more visible. Yeah, okay. I'll read from this paragraph. In spite of the pullout of Serbian and Yugoslav forces from Kosovo, a great number of Serbian paramilitary forces have remained in Kosovo, disguised as farmers and civilians, and the Serbian Secret Service is still widely active in Kosovo. KFOR should take every measure to eliminate these secret forces and disarm the civilians. The cooperation in this respect with the interim government of Kosovo and the KLA General Staff would restore the normality in Kosovo more rapidly. Sir, were you aware of the fact that also Hashim Thaçi raised the issue of Serbian paramilitary remaining active in Kosovo in that period?
This was a continuing concern that we heard about at SHAPE. We knew of the existence of paramilitary groups still operating within Kosovo, and there were still informants and collaborators reporting to the Ministry of Internal Affairs of Serbia.
Also, were you aware of the fact that by late August 1999, tensions had escalated to the point that Serbia was reportedly preparing for military reinvasion, prompting KFOR to be on alert?
It was a continuing concern, yes.
Yes, I would like to call P2535 on the screens. What we discussed was indeed reported by the news and is documented by this exhibit that I'm going to show you, sir. Can I please have the second page? That is SITF 00194870. Sir, we see now the document. This is a report that details a summary of the events in the former Yugoslavia for the 9th of September 1999. I will read from paragraph 6 at the end of this page. Yes, and maybe we can zoom in a bit. Paragraph 6 says, the Independent reports that Serb troops are massed on the border and ready to invade Kosovo again at any given moment. A Yugoslav army general said yesterday, General Radovan Lazarevic, commander of the armies, and he continues. Next page, please. Of the Pristina Corps, told the Nedeljini Telegraph newspaper that Belgrade would send in troops if the international community failed to respect the terms of the deal that ended the conflict over the province. If the international community refuses to implement what has been agreed, we will have to use forces to reclaim our territory, he said. Now, the same is reported also at page 4, paragraph 15 of this report. This is the political intelligence section. I will not read the whole paragraph. In paragraph 15, towards the end, we see In the fray, the commander of the VJ Pristina Corps, Colonel General Lazarevic, has said that the VJ is prepared to force its way back into Kosovo. Do you recall those tensions, sir?
I do not recall this specific document or report, but I know that there were such threats, yes.
And do you recall whether General Clark was also concerned that the Serbs may re-enter Kosovo or launch counterattacks in Kosovo after June 1999?
I believe that General Clark was aware of such reports. I'm not sure that he took them seriously because we would regard this to a considerable extent as political posturing delivered through military voices.
Okay, thank you. Your Honors, I think I'm done with my cross-examination. However, if we could take the break now, I'll go over my paper just to make sure I don't have further questions, and I will confirm that after the break.
Unless there's an objection, we'll do that.
No objection.
All right.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So we'll take a half-hour break at this time. Actually, we'll have you back here at 11:30.
All rise. All rise.
Please be seated. You can bring in the court officer, the witness, Madam Court Officer. Ms. Diascali, do you have more? Oops.
No, Your Honors, but I will say it in the presence
Yeah,
of the witness
yeah,
to thank him. Thank you.
Just asking. We're getting closer to the end.
Thank you.
Ms. Diascali.
Thank you, Your Honor. And, sir, those were actually my questions. I reviewed my plan, and I don't have further questions for you. Thank you very much for your attention. Your Honors, that concludes my cross-examination.
Thank you. Redirect.
Thank you. Mr. Decky, I have a few questions to follow up on what the prosecutor asked you. You were asked some questions about the existence of Serbian paramilitaries and a threat of return of Serbian forces to Kosovo, and of KFOR being placed on alert as a result. Do you recall those questions?
Yes, I do.
If Serbian paramilitaries were to have engaged in hostilities, or if Serbia had decided to send in its forces, how would KFOR have responded?
KFOR would have attempted to defend the territory, to defeat the attacking forces, to restore security, and of course would have called upon SHAPE to provide additional forces to assist.
I think you've answered my next question, which is, would Serbia's re-entry or the activation of Serbian paramilitaries within Kosovo have placed KFOR back into conflict with Serbia?
Yes.
Has anything that you have heard today from the prosecution changed your view that the armed conflict between the KLA and Serbian forces ended on the 20th of June?
And no, I still believe that.
Now, you were asked a number of questions. Thank you. I now want to move on to another topic. You were asked a number of questions about alleged KLA crimes in the summer of 1999 in breach of the undertaking. Due to the restrictions on the provider, I'd like to go into private session, please.
Private session, please, Madam Court Officer.
And when we're in there, I know.
Your Honors, we are now in public session.
Thank you.
And thank you. And again, good morning, Mr. Durkee.
Good morning, Your Honor.
I'm afraid I have a few more questions for you, but I promise it shouldn't take too long. Mr. Durkee, you told us yesterday during your examination by the Thaçi defense that the organized Serbian forces had left Kosovo within, I believe, 11 days after the MTA, the military technical agreement, was signed in Kumanovo on 9 June 1999. I can see you nodding, but do you remember saying this for the record?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And just again, for our record, this can be found on transcript page 27999. Mr. Durkee, could I ask you to explain to us again what you meant by organized Serbian forces? Was that a reference to the Serbian army, to the MUP, and to the other police forces?
I was referring to those forces that were under the direct control of the institutional leadership of the government in Belgrade. That is, they were part of the Yugoslav Army, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, and so they were the formal, official, organized units of the Serb government.
Thank you. And just to be clear about that point, if I understood you correctly, you said just before the 11 o'clock break earlier this morning, in response to a question by the prosecutor, that you were aware at the time that Serbian paramilitary forces were also operating in Kosovo in and before the summer of 1999. Is that right?
Yes.
And was this also the case, to your knowledge, after the withdrawal of the organized or the official Serbian forces?
I don't understand the question.
Are you aware, or to your knowledge, was this also the case that Serbian forces, paramilitary forces, were also operating in Kosovo after the withdrawal of the, as you said, official Serbian forces?
Yes, they were.
Thank you. And my last question on that topic, do you know where the regular or official, the organized Serbian forces, as opposed to the paramilitary forces, went after they had withdrawn from Kosovo? Did they go back to their barracks, or did they stay close to the border, or did they go elsewhere? Do you know?
I think that Army Corps that was used in Kosovo withdrew to the area beyond the border, but was not disbanded or sent back to barracks.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Durkee, would like to move on to a different, and my last topic actually. In paragraph 12 of your statement to the defense, you said you recall a meeting in March 1999 between General Clark and a Kosovo delegation, including Mr. Thaçi. I do remember discussing this with the defense and also here in the courtroom yesterday and today.
Yes.
You further said, according to your defense statement, that the purpose of this meeting was twofold, and I quote, first, General Clark wanted to get acquainted with the Kosovars, who he believed could be future leaders of Kosovo. Second, General Clark was interested in gaining a better understanding of KLA political intentions and military capacities in the event that he was ordered to conduct a military operation there, end of quote. I'd like to ask you, Mr. Durkee, whether the Kosovars, who General Clark and perhaps also you believed to be future leaders of Kosovo, included Mr. Thaçi.
Yes, we did.
Thank you. Could you tell us why Mr. Thaçi was believed to be a future leader of Kosovo in March 1999?
It seemed to us that by being included in the Kosovar delegation to the Rambouillet negotiations, that more broadly the international community perceived him to be a man of influence and potential leadership, so that since we were aware of his connection to the KLA without necessarily being fully aware of his place within it, it seemed it would be a good investment to make the effort to become acquainted and get a measure of the man.
And eventually, it turned out that he became a leader of Kosovo as first the prime minister of the PGOK, the provisional government of Kosovo, and later on as the president of Kosovo,
Yes.
way after the war. And according to paragraph 13 of your statement, you told the defense that Mr. Thaçi presented himself as the leader of the delegation. Do you call this, saying this to the defense?
Yes.
And I would like to know from you, how did he do that? How did Mr. Thaçi introduce himself to you and to General Clark, excuse me?
As I recall the meeting, Your Honor, Thaçi came in and began to introduce the other members. And then, as we sat down, he assumed the position directly across from General Clark, which is normally the position taken by the leader of the people on the other side.
And was that the reference, as the leader of the delegation, was that the reference to the, just to be clear on that point, Kosovo-Albanian delegation in Rambouillet?
No, excuse me, that my point was that he was the leader of the group that came to the meeting in Mons.
This is what I wanted to know.
Yes.
Thank you. These are all my questions.
Judge Metro, right here.
Thank you, Judge Smith, and good morning, witness. I'll stay with the meeting in Mons for a second. You've indicated you were shown first a report yesterday that was republished by BBC about that meeting, and you pointed to certain inaccuracies in the report. You recall those questions?
Yes.
I wanted to ask you whether there was any particular reason why the meeting between that delegation and General Clark took place not at the headquarters in Mons, but at the airbase. And I see you smile, so you might have an idea.
Yes. There was a certain protocol for foreign visitors to the headquarters in terms of how they would be met, conducted through the building, and taken to General Clark's office. It had a ceremonial kind of tenor to it, a way of paying attention to foreign visitors, to treating them as important people. We were not yet convinced that we would be dealing with the people who had been at Rambouillet in the same way. We wanted to get to know them. We wanted to take the measure of them, to try to learn more about their intentions, what plans they had. But we did not want to legitimize them necessarily. And so it was decided that we would meet them at the airfield in a relatively small airless conference room.
I want to ask you about something else you said earlier this morning. You were being asked about the political directorate of the KLA General Staff, and you said which would be separate, of course, from the General Staff. I want to explore with you about a bit the basis of your statement there. Do you know where the political directorate fit within the General Staff in 1998 and 1999?
This is a question that requires some exploration because in Western militaries, there is no political directorate within a general staff. Within the Warsaw Pact, the militaries there, including the militaries that were such as the VJ, would have a political element within the general staff. So it seemed to us that there was a mimicking of what the Kosovo Albanians would have been used to with regard to Yugoslav army structures. And yet, as we read about in the public press, we read about the political directorate, there was an effort to portray the political directorate as above the general staff, which is confusing to the military mind. So it was labeled as existing. Thaçi was described as a leader of the political directorate, but we had no clear understanding of the relationship between that civilian element and the fighters, particularly the fighters on the ground in Kosovo.
And I don't mean that in any way as a criticism, because I understood your answer to be exactly what you explained, that it was an assumption built on your understanding of how it normally works. So do I understand it correctly that as far as specifically the KLA General Staff is concerned, you would not be in a position to assert exactly where it was located? Would that be fair?
That's correct.
And if it were to be suggested that the structure was built within the General Staff, you would not be in a position to comment either way. Would that be correct?
That is correct.
And pushing you a bit on the matter to the extent you are able to, were you aware at the time who the various directors of the KLA General Staff directorates were, or were you only aware about Mr. Thaçi's function in that regard?
We knew about Mr. Thaçi. We also knew that there was a person identified as a spokesperson for the KLA, and that was Jakub Krasniqi.
And again, pushing your knowledge to verify what you knew at the time about this, were you aware of the fact that the director of these directorates might have been members of the General Staff? In other words, both the director of specific directorates and members of the General Staff, or was it information beyond your knowledge?
At the time of that meeting in Mons, we did not have that kind of clarity.
And again, to the extent you feel confident or capable of giving an understanding, your understanding at least, what did you understand or what did you know to be the role and function of the political directorate?
Again, there are no good Western analogs to that kind of structure. And it seemed to us that reading the public statements, it was as if the political directorate was somehow giving direction to the General Staff. And yet, if it were part of the General Staff, that would be a contradiction. So it was confusing.
I have a last couple of questions about something else you dealt with, about the various démarches or demands that General Jackson made to Mr. Thaçi and Mr. Cecu about what were believed to be criminal activities of the KLA. Do you recall those questions?
Yes, I do.
And in response to one of these questions, you suggested that your understanding, as it were at the time, was that the zone commanders had quite a bit of independence. Do you recall saying that?
Yes.
What I would like to understand is then why, in your understanding, would General Jackson go to Mr. Cecu and Mr. Thaçi to get these matters sorted out? Why didn't he go to the zone commanders, if you know, of course?
I believe that from the point of view of General Jackson, he should be dealing with the people with whom he negotiated the implementation of the undertaking, and that was Cecu and Thaçi. So that it would not have been proper military protocol for him to go directly to subordinate commanders. He would leave that to his own subordinate commanders, the brigade commanders in the field, rather than doing that himself.
So would it be fair to say, and again, put your own words on my question, but there was an assumption on the part of Jackson, from what you say, that if you were able to make this understanding on behalf of the KLA, you would be able to ensure compliance with it within the ranks?
We then need to go back to the actual negotiation of the undertaking, which could only be approved after consultation and agreement among the zone commanders. So, yes, he was putting pressure on the top-level leadership, but in the understanding that they were committed themselves to the undertaking, they had the approval of the operational zone commanders to do likewise, and appealing to their sense of honor to deal with the violations of the undertaking that they had approved. So that it is attempting to get them to respond as a proper military chain of command while recognizing that not all the zone commanders were equally cooperative or compliant.
Thank you, and those were my questions. Thank you, witness.
Judge Gaynor?
Thank you, Judge Smith. Just a couple from me, Mr. Durkee. I want to explore what you knew about the Serbian paramilitary forces that were in Kosovo after the withdrawal of the VJ and the Serbian MUP forces. I think you agreed with Judge Barta that you were aware of such forces operating.
Yes?
Do you know the names of those Serbian paramilitary forces?
It's interesting to look at the parallels with the situation that we found in Bosnia after the implementation of the Dayton Accords, because there too we found at least remnants of the paramilitaries that had been operating in cooperation with the VJ and MUP, and they remained. And you had such colorful names as Archon's Tigers and Frankie's Boys. Frankie Simatovic, I think, was the name. And so we did not know in specific terms whether they were physically present in Kosovo. We knew that they had elements active in Kosovo during the conflict, and that some of them stayed behind. It's the sort of situation where it's very difficult for intelligence services to penetrate, get information directly on that level of activity. I think in general, Kosovo during that period was a very chaotic time, and you had various Western intelligence services trying to develop networks of information, as we did also through KFOR. So we knew that there were elements of the paramilitaries that remained behind. It was difficult to get specific information about who they were, what their capabilities and intentions were.
And focusing exclusively now on the period after the withdrawal of the VJ and the Serbian MUP, did you know at all what kind of activities they were carrying out?
They were putting pressure on, for example, the Serbs that remained behind in the Mitrovica area and northern Kosovo, putting pressure on Serbs not to cooperate with UNMIK and KFOR because they wished to maintain Serbian control over those territories.
And to your knowledge, did any of those Serbian paramilitary forces engage in hostilities of any kind after the withdrawal of the VJ?
If the question means hostilities against KFOR, I believe no. Their actions were directed against civilian elements of the population.
Well, let me explore that a little bit. Were their actions forceful? Were they using weapons?
They would certainly have been armed. I don't recall specific incidents of armed violence, but the threat was there. And of course, they were dealing with Serb civilian elements, who themselves were very concerned about the future and were hoping for Serbian support to protect them.
And did you understand during this period that any of those Serbian paramilitary forces were engaged in any kind of hostilities with the KLA forces, which were in the process of being demobilized?
I think by that time there was a de facto separation of forces. The Serbs were focused more on northern Kosovo. The KLA was in the midst of going to the assembly areas and demobilizing in accordance with the terms of the undertaking. So on a de facto basis, there would not have been a lot of opportunity for direct contact.
And do you remember any assessment as to how many individuals in these Serbian paramilitary forces were still in Kosovo at that time?
No, as I said, it was a very chaotic situation and difficult to develop informed, accurate information.
I understand. Thank you very much, Mr. Durkee.
Any questions to follow up on the judge's questions?
Yes, I have a couple of questions. I think we have to release a document. If you could just bear with us one moment, please. Is that this document you're releasing? It's been released, the one document. Sorry, if I could just have one moment. Thank you. Mr. Durkee, would you like to stand up?
Just did.
You just did, yeah. Mr. Prosper suggested you might need to. Okay, so you're okay to proceed?
Yes.
Thank you. It was suggested to you by Judge Matroh that General Jackson did not go to the zone commanders to seek compliance. Are you aware whether General Jackson insisted on the zone commanders being present at all meetings of the JIC?
I don't know what instructions General Jackson gave to his brigade commanders or zone commanders.
Would it?
Interpreter's note, our transcript has stopped.
And for the record, Ms. Tavakoli, the question was not a general one. It was about the incident you asked about in relation to alleged KLA violence.
Thank you for that. Are you aware that in those JIC meetings, where the zone commanders were present, Jackson brought up issues about violence and sought compliance of the undertaking?
I have no specific recollection of such reports, but I would expect General Jackson to do that.
And do you know why he would do something like that in the presence of the zone commanders?
Because that was in the context of the joint implementation councils, in which it was appropriate for him to deal with people who were attending those meetings. But that's different from his going outside that particular setting and going directly to zone commanders over the head of Cheku.
Thank you. Now, if we could... the next question is, are you aware that General Jackson made statements in the press in August 1999, saying that he was concerned that the leadership of the KLA didn't have control over hardline elements of the KLA?
Yes.
And is that consistent with your own view?
Yes, because we knew that some zone commanders were very resistant to the idea of demobilization. They thought that they were the leading elements of Kosovo independence, that they had been winning through force of arms on the battlefield, and they did not lightly give up that role simply because that what the international community wanted them to do. We were relying, remember, on the fact that in the negotiation of the undertaking, the zone commanders were consulted, and at least as a collective group, were willing to accept and abide by the undertaking. Then when they got home, they found that many of their individual fighters were very unhappy about what they had done. So that there were internal tensions, different factions, and some were more cooperative than others.
Thank you very much, Mr. Durkee. They're all my questions.
Thank you.
Nothing further.
I believe, Mr. Durkee, you are finished.
Thank you, Your Honors.
Thank you for being with us. Thank you for the quality of your answers and following the rules so carefully. We wish you well in the future.
Thank you. I hope I spoke slowly enough for the interpreters. I know it's a tough job.
So we will see you on Monday at noon to be in. We're adjourned until then, unless there's something else. No? Okay. Adjourned till noon on Monday.
All rise.